message. The future is not set.
Hi, everybody. Hi. It's quiet in here. I know it's like the unenviable last slot of the day, of the conference, I do believe. So, I've already scared them away. Oh my God, guys, I'm just getting started here. Jeez. Yeah, I get that a lot. It should be on. Oh, man.
Oh,
wow.
yeah, it is on. Okay, cool.
Cool. So everybody in here is like, hey, dude, we're just here because. Hopefully, are there salespeople in the audience? Cool.
We got two. Former salespeople. Hey, salespeople out there, you should be in here.
They're not gonna come in here. They all tore down their booths and they're gone already.
Yeah.
Like.
This is like the best time too.
I don't know about that. So, hey, let's dive into this. So, we're here to obviously talk a little bit about the whole wonderful cybersecurity sales process. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Alyssa Miller. I'm a hacker, an author, researcher. I'm CISO. I'm a board member. I've spent 27 years in tech. Ooh, let me throw all that at you. Why am I up here? I've worked for more different types of companies. I've been on the buyer side, I've been on the seller side, and everywhere in between. And when I mentioned being on a board, well, one of the boards that I'm very fortunate to serve on is for an organization called Epiphany Solutions Group, which happens to be a seller of products and services. So, whoop, whoop, that puts me in a position to work with this character next to me, who I'm going to let introduce himself.
Hey guys, my name's Ben Tenpas. I'm the co-founder of ESG, or Epiphany Solution Group. I'm actually relatively new to the tech industry, comparatively. I've only been working in this industry since 2018, but I think one of the really cool things that working with Alyssa and just understanding who people are is building genuine relationships with people and developing partnerships with our clients. And, honestly, just treating them like people first and buyers second. And if we did that in our industry, I think we'd have a lot less frustration, So, yeah. And these are just some pictures of of our clients, some of my friends. These are all IT professionals that I've taken in the last 6 months. So.
Now wait, are they all clients? Because I thought I saw at least one founder on there. But.
Okay, IT professionals.
So you already heard, like Ben, we're trying to break him of the ongoing, everything's a sale, you can kind of hear it. But it's cool. I mean, he talks about ESG with some pride, and that's, obviously having a CISO and a reseller working together kind of lends itself to this topic, right? Ben and I, we've talked. How many times? I mean, we talk all the time about stupid salesperson tricks that I bitch 100%. And moan and complain about, right?
100%.
And what do you tell me in return?
That it's stupid.
Did you hear that? Some of them get it. All right? This is cool. But the fact of the matter is, in talking with Ben, you also find out that CISO's kind of, buyers. I'll say buyers, because not everybody who's got the infamous purchasing authority is a CISO, right? Awesome. We have one of those humans right here in front.
Oh, yes.
So that's why I bring that up.
Nice.
So, I mean, let's actually start there. We'll start with the unpredictable, which is, Ben, let's talk about some of the things you've told me. What are the problems when you're dealing with buyers?
Yeah, it's interesting. But Alyssa, at the same time, I get it from your perspective too. Who loves getting 45 emails in a row? Like anybody? Does anybody like getting, getting asked weird questions about budget.
I
within the
noticed you
first
haven't
5
responded
minutes
to
of
my
a meeting.
first 39 emails, so I'm going to send you another.
It's like I don't understand. Okay, so like I always equate like the buying process like dating. I'm like, do you ever ask to marry a woman on the first date or your partner?
I actually
on the
know
first?
somebody who did that.
I was like, I don't understand how this process works. So our goal is to educate people on what's going on. But things that I have to face on a daily basis is, so I work with Series A, Series B startups, and we introduce them to organizations like Alyssa's. And one thing that consistently happens is I'll make an introduction, and then they'll just circumvent me because they want to get the best price, right? Or I'll book a meeting and say, hey, this is what's going on, no call, no show. I get it, people have lives, but at the same time, I think there's a level of respect. This one is a personal favorite. When you're working on a project, they give you qualifying material, and then they just ghost you. That's always my favorite.
Never did that. I've never done that. Never
or lastly, I have empathy towards people because I think they tend to meet us, like us. We have great energy, and they say, hey, let's work on this deal together. Yeah. And the next conversation is like, oh, yeah, I bought that from somebody else. So I think the goal here today is just how to educate people on like how to work through that process. Right, Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, so this started off as we were going to talk about stupid salesperson tricks. That was going to be the whole talk. And, I mean, you kind of heard, Ben and I got to talking about it, and I started hearing, it's like, I wasn't really shocked, but it was a good reminder that, from the buyer side, in my case, the CISO side, we can be as much of a part of the problem as we are the solution. I mean, we talk about, you're talking about that whole idea of like circumventing. I've seen this, having worked for a reseller, not ESG, prior to ESG, a big red boxed company that many of you probably are familiar with because they sold computers for a long time. We used to run into that too, right? And you would work with a customer, you'd put in a lot of effort, get them connected to a lot of really cool people that are in your network, and all of a sudden they're calling that vendor directly, which, free world, right? I mean, that's your right. You want to do that. One, it's generally a pardon my French, shitty human thing to do to somebody else. But two, it's actually counterproductive to you as a CISO or as a buyer oftentimes because, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, boy, if I work through this reseller, Ben's taken, his points off the top, and I could just cut that out and go straight to one of their salespeople, and I'm going to get a better deal.
Right, and Alyssa, I think that you bring up an interesting point. Is I understand people have certain budgets, right? I totally understand that. But what happens when you get that great discount, and all of a sudden shit hits the fan? Like who are you going to call? Like, am I going to pick up on the first call? 9 times out of 10, I do. But if you call that salesperson, like, I just left. I'm sorry. Like, how many have experienced that, right? So I think that's how you can develop.
None of them have worked with Microsoft, apparently.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No, that was my point. They never do. But, the other part of it, though, is honestly, and thinking from a raw price perspective, and this is the perspective I got from working for said big red company. Maybe in the macro sense, there is some benefit to working with a reseller. Maybe that's where that term value added came from, right? I mean, I would hope that it's not foreign to people, first of all, that working with a reseller, they're working in volume. And vendors like volume. They like to sell lots of things, not little onesie-twosie things. So while they may give you a bigger discount in theory, you're missing out on the benefits of what that reseller is giving you. However, what I'll tell you from my personal experience on the other side now is the really good resellers can also tell you how much more, God, I'm going to use this, I hate this yucky term, but juice there is to squeeze, so to speak. When you're in negotiation, your reseller who's been working with that vendor actually has some knowledge of that vendor that maybe you've just met, right? And so I don't want this. This is not. I'm realizing as I'm talking right now, it sounds like I'm a reseller commercial. Like you should work with resellers because resellers are great. That is not what I'm saying. Sometimes they are amazing. Sometimes they're not. But my point is, understand the bigger picture when you're working with a salesperson, and understand that they're not just these evil humans who are, as we'll talk about in a little bit, bombarding your email and doing horrible, terrible, ill-advised things. So, understand there's a lot more, and there is value in if you're working directly with, someone who's made that introduction, whoever they are, they probably, rather than cutting them out of the loop, they might have something more to offer you.
Totally.
I mean, that cover that, you figure?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where we're at. So,
right. Well,
cool.
I think Alyssa, what would be great next is perspectives from both sides. So it's really fascinating. I started my sales journey when I was 13 years old. And I started my first company and have transitioned to the young age of 33. But what's really fascinating is that a lot of people in corporate America, especially in sales, all they care about is numbers, right? All they care about is numbers, and they just want to say, hey, the more calls, the more emails, the more touches you give means the better results that you're going to get, right? And I think that's where some of the problems, Alyssa, kind of lie, right?
Oh, could I write a dissertation on this topic? So let's talk about it. I mean, I actually want to dig into this because we talk about, we've gone over, some of at least a couple of things that CISOs do that can be problematic, but obviously there are things, and I think from the general makeup of the room, I think most of the people here are more on the buyer side, and we're the ones that are getting the 40,000 emails. We're the ones who are getting
I think it's 50.
Okay, maybe 50. We're getting the unsolicited meeting invitations. Can I cuss? It's CypherCon. Fuck right off with that shit, okay? If you're a salesperson if you're any person who's ever done that to anyone, just get out of here, right? Like, no, that's not how you do it. But and the one that really has been, and this is, so now we're gonna get into things that maybe you guys don't even think about as much, but I'm hoping you do because I do. I've had conversations with lots of salespeople. I worked in a couple sales orgs, whatever, right? So I've had these conversations. And the question always comes back to me when I bitch about what they do in email and their terrible ideas for how to connect is, well, how do we do better? Okay, well, one of my pat answers is, if you're going to cold email somebody, offer something of value.
Totally.
Right? And now we're starting to see this, which is good. I'm seeing more and more vendors will say, hey, I don't know if this is, if you're working on the latest, whatever, identity access, blah, 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 blah. But hey, we just did this report. We worked with some research firm. We've released this report. Just in case it's of interest to you, here you go. And that's all the email says. I'm like, that's great. And then I go and I look at the link. And what did they do?
Give us your details.
Details. Exactly. They put all this tracking shit on this. And I don't know that it's actually the salespeople, right? I think this actually comes from their marketing teams.
I mean, they're basically sales, though,
True.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring this up is, A, for me, okay, I'm not clicking that link. Thanks. Goodbye. I will look at the link, and if it's just like a UTM or something, I can strip, and then I can still open up the location from somewhere in a sandbox browser. Yeah, I'll go grab it still. But understand, too, yes, I'm the idiot who will put in that much effort to just spite you to go get that file now, right? But the other times that's not even possible, because other times, just the link itself is the tracking information that they need. But here's the problem. Why do they do that? Why do they put this tracking information on there? Thoughts? Say it loud for the whole crew to hear that word. Metrics. The M word, metrics. We are all about metrics everywhere, aren't we? But let me ask you this question. If you're a salesperson, and Ben, this is what I asked you, right? If I'm a salesperson and I'm trying to, as the name would imply, sell things, Does the fact that somebody opened that report mean I've sold anything? Does it mean that they're going to call me the next day? Does any of that equate? Is there any linear, causation there whatsoever?
You won't know unless you measure it.
They don't know anything from that. But it's like we see at the conferences when it's, they do this right at conferences. Their booths, that they're measuring how many people come into their booths. That's why they want to scan you.
Gotta love those QR codes.
I mean, yes, they wanted to because they want to build their lead sheet. But the people who are doing the scanning, most often they're getting rated by how many scans per day they get. And it is the most useless stat. So,
Alyssa, I was just talking to a security professional outside, works for a large organization here in Milwaukee, and I was even talking to some other people this week, and I think honestly a lot of you buyers, like, you don't mind learning, right? Here's what I think the problem is I don't think that people in the sales industry understand that they're disrespecting your time, specifically even around cold calling, right? I've heard a lot of people say, man, I hate when people cold call me. What's really interesting, when I first started my business, that's all I did. Yet I know the CISO of the largest privately owned company in Illinois, right? I've developed some of these great relationships. I'm just saying that people respect it.
He pulls this shit all the time.
I'm just saying.
He's subtle. He won't drop the name, but he'll drop the title.
We're on, but I'm just saying, I think it's a respect thing, and I think it's also salespeople in the room, you need to learn how to give people new ideas and make them think. I think when you can do that, people appreciate that, and they actually want to partner with you. Alyssa, do you agree on that?
Well, yeah, and I mean, back to the metrics conversation, it's all right, so I'm trying to, if I'm cold calling you, what is my objective? Well, my objective is to start a discussion, right? At the end of the day, I want to start a conversation because I know I'm not going to sell you anything if I don't get to talk to you. So, okay, great. Well, that's where we're back to how does me opening the file you sent create that discussion? It might. I mean, I might actually open it up and be like, wow, you know, Jim, Bob, Joe, whatever, AI, super special, whatever, anti-everything monitoring system. Yeah, this is great. I want this. And I might call. But until the point that I've actually called back, what have you accomplished? Nothing, right?
Well, the marketing people know what message is working.
The marketing people know the message is working. People are interested in that report we did. Yay! We still had a shit quarter. No one cares, right? And that's the point that I think, from a buyer's side we want to make is, hey, understand that this is, this. If I don't respond, there's a reason. It's your message doesn't resonate. Your product isn't something I need. It's not in my roadmap. And oh, by the way, if you think that instant gratification is going to make your quarter better, well, newsflash, I have never worked in any organization in my entire life other than a sales organization that worked on quarters for anything. I don't make my budgets every quarter. My budget's set in October the year before. So if whatever you're trying to sell me in March of 2025 is not in my strategic vision, I don't care how big, bad, wonderful, excellent that next-gen AI scrappy thing is that you're going to give me and sell to me at some wonderful discount off of your list price, I'm still not buying it until at least next year. So what are we talking about in the next 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months maybe? And that's where I think us as the buyers can start to maybe share that perspective. Because I think that this is something, don't get me wrong, as buyers we're not changing the world, all right? Sales orgs are going to still go working quarter to quarter. I have yet to work with one that doesn't. They get to the end of the quarter, they set their goals by quarter, and it makes sense. I get why it exists that way, right? I mean, they're looking to keep flat growth, right? You don't want the huge hockey stick in one quarter because the next quarter is going to kick you in the ass, All right, that's the reality. That's their perspective. That's what they're working from. So now as I think about it, like, okay, what are we going to do to start playing together a little bit better? It's, well, hey, let's start with just being open and honest about who we are as the buyer. You know what? This is actually a really cool thing that you're talking about here. I really like it. I think it could definitely solve our problem with people trying to exfiltrate our code. Sorry, I'm borrowing from the last topic, the previous panel.
Yeah.
But hey, I don't have this on my radar at all this year. And I'd like to talk to you more about it, but it's going to be at least a year before we could even make any type of purchase or talk any numbers here. So can we schedule a demo?
Listen, let's also talk about this idea, and I think this is something else that's kind of fascinating with me running this company for last 4 years. So if you tell a buyer, maybe even like a reseller, be like, hey, I have this big project that we're spending $10 million on, and you meet a salesperson for the first time, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, Alyssa, we have the best thing that could help you with your needs. Are you going to work with that person?
I want you to know, I have never been approached by a salesperson where I ever felt the desire to say, you're the greatest salesperson ever. Oh, please, what can I buy from you?
So
no.
What's really fascinating though about that, right? Like, listen, like a multi-million-dollar project, like what happens if that project goes bad?
Were you guys up here for the career panel earlier? I would be needing that, right?
Right.
I mean, I say this as someone who's sitting in the middle of right now trying to resurrect an IAM program that I inherited that's falling to hell, and it may be the end of my job. So, consider that for what it's worth. I'm kidding. It won't be the end of my job, but it may have some problems still.
But like, so here's what I'm trying to get to at this. Like, I feel like when I was earlier on in my career, like I'd hear Alyssa say like, oh, I am like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be an amazing project. I'm going to hit my quota. I'm going to make all this money. Like if Alyssa and I just met, there's no way in hell she would ever work with me on that. Like that is her job. Like we need to build trust and show people that we're like in it for it. And probably Alyssa, on something that big, you have somebody you've been working with for the last 15, 20 years where you're like, hey, I need some help. I know you're the shit. Like, let's work on this, right?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think
not always though. And I guess that's the flip side of it is understand there are opportunities where there might be, hey, I'm really just kind of looking.
Right.
I'm back to the IAM problem again. And working with a terrible third-party implementation partner who, crapped the bed. And those do happen. But see, that's the difference is when you sit down and you talk with a customer, and customers, when you're willing to sit and have that conversation with a account manager, account rep, there's about 47,000 different names that they use for themselves now. Everybody's got a cool
They're all
title.
dumb.
Yeah, the titles he means. The titles.
Enterprise account executive.
Yeah, that's
strategic enterprise account executive.
Awesome. These are great. Yes, named account executive. So
Ultra
I'd like to be
strategic.
the anonymous accounting representative. I don't know who any of my customers are. I might have said that to a vendor once. But no, I mean, seriously, the point here being it's, when you actually take the time to share information and not be cagey and distrusting of the salesperson right away. Now, if they give you reason to be distrusting, yes, don't trust them. But you can slowly. This is that building a relationship thing, right? And God, are we really? I'm going to go back to the dating thing you brought up earlier.
I mean, it's relatable.
Fuck. So dating, you don't just go in on the first date and start spewing all of your problems. Well, maybe you do, but that probably doesn't work really well for you.
Listen, or even a friendship. Like, if you meet somebody, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm having GI problems. That's not something that you do, right?
Except he did.
Like, oh, yeah, I have a problem with IBS. I just know you wanted to know that,
But seriously, we talk about how do we break this? Now, how do we fix the cycle? How do we get, salespeople, we do have a part to play in this, okay? It's not something that we just are going to see go away because we yell on the internet, which I might be guilty of doing a lot of. You do have to be willing to be open and help the people that are annoying us see how not to annoy us. And it just begins with, all right, maybe I give them a little piece of information. Maybe I talk to them, just take that call and figure what the hell. I will tell you that for me personally, it's been really interesting, because of course, the minute you put CISO in your LinkedIn bio, we all know what happens, right? I mean, you put Director of Security in your LinkedIn bio, holy shit. Then you put your VP, and it's like, whoa! And then you do CISO, it's like, Jesus, stop! Okay, it happens.
It's crazy.
But because I have all those calls, I can actually find the good ones, and there are some, right? And the cool thing is, I've talked to people who are selling things I had zero interest in. Hey, do you want to buy this really great? I wish I had the example right now, but it was a SIM. And it was actually, I think, someone you were working with. But it was not, by the way, I don't buy anything from an ESG, not because they're not awesome, but because that would be a serious conflict of interest. So just so we're clear on that. But I do talk to a lot of the vendors that they do because they're vendors I'm interested in. And it was a SIM vendor.
And that's how it should be, by the way.
Yes. So it's a SIM vendor. And where I'm going with this, I promise there's a point to this. It's a SIM vendor. It had some, I don't even remember what it was about it, but it was interesting. It was just interesting. Okay? I've worked in cybersecurity 27 years. I like to see interesting ways that people look at these things. So I actually took the call. Now, I'm on Microsoft Sentinel. I'm an E5 shop. I'm in Sentinel. Love it or leave it, right? I'm not going to go buy a new SIM. That would be, I don't know how I'd write that business case.
But wait, we use AI.
Yeah, stop. Stop. Copilot. Evil. I'm going to just call you Copilot from now on after that. Double entendre. But no, but what was cool was two things. One, I got to see, it was actually kind of a neat product, and I actually am feeling bad that I can't remember the name of it right now because I would love to actually share it with you. But more importantly, was I got connected with that account manager. That account manager, after our first conversation, set up a call with their CEO. Okay, cool. Their CEO came to Milwaukee from Atlanta-ish, I want to say. Sat down with me, took me to dinner right over here at Mason Street Grill. And we sat down and we talked. Well, he ended up networking me with a bunch of different people. I got connected to a whole bunch of cool new people. I ended up getting connected to the CEO of Ontinu, our friends. Guess who my MDR partner is now? It's Ontinu. And me and Jeff Hayden actually have a really good relationship now. Jeff Hayden being the CEO of Ontinu, sorry, I should be clear. But that's, there are benefits to you. You get to learn about a cool new thing if the salesperson comes with the right people. And be clear about your expectations, what you want them to come with. Hey, I don't want a sales pitch. Bring in a sales engineer. I want to see this thing in action. I don't want a caged demo. I want the real thing. Show me what this looks like.
Salespeople, you also need to communicate that to your leadership. Like, CISOs don't care about your 5-step, 8-step, 10-step process. Be like, oh, we can't do a demo until we have a discovery call. Like who cares? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard,
And then, this is a fact. How many of you have ever had trouble getting a demo on a first call? Right? They want to come in, well, we want to talk to you and learn about your organization. They play it off like, which we're going to learn something about your organization, have this grand conversation.
And listen, that's the thing me coming into this industry back in 2018 that I did not understand, which is why I started my own company. I'm like, what do you think, salespeople, what do you think that you could teach a technical buyer, on a first call? The answer is probably not much, unless you were in IT and then made the evil switch, right? Joking, but.
So many comments. But So this is, again, back to what Ben said early on. It's understanding that who you're talking to is a human being. In general, they actually do want to do good. Okay? I mean, now, yes, they are out there. They are absolutely profiteering. That is literally the nature of their job. It's what they get paid to do, is make money for the company. So, yes, keep that in mind. But also keep in mind that most of your salespeople are going to understand that pissing off the person they're trying to sell to probably isn't going to fly really well. So by being clear with your expectations up front, hey, you know what? I'll take a call. You can walk me through your deck. I really don't anticipate we're going to be buying anything right now. Be legit. I mean, that's an easy one. If you do want to see the product, be clear, because it will save you. It'll save you stress too. And I've done this. Like I said before, just, hey, you know what? I'll do this call, but I don't want a PowerPoint-based demo or anything. Make sure you've got somebody who can actually put this thing through the paces and can, operate off script, because I'm going to want to dig into specific areas of the product as I see it. That one scares them, by the way. Wait, you want me to bring maybe a sales engineer or whoever and let them run off script through the product? No. But when you tell them it's what you want, they kind of listen, right? They might be resistant, like you said. I mean, they might be, we want to introduce you to our company, tell you that we're here in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and here's all the logos on a big logo screen that's got companies we couldn't possibly actually be doing business with.
I got news for that vendor. Canceled,
Yeah.
If people can't listen on a first impression, like, what's going to make you think that they're going to listen once you're actually a customer? That's the thing that drives me nuts,
So what else can I do? I'm a CISO. What else do I want to do?
I think you brought up an interesting point, Alyssa, about, setting expectations up front. But, like, if say that person that called you 30 times, 40 times, you actually, like, we have to be a part of the solution to the problem, right? Is maybe we have a 30-minute conversation with them and say, hey, I want to take 5 minutes at the end of this call. I want to say, hey, like, I understand that you have a job. I understand that you're doing things. But, like, you didn't do a great job with this, this, and this. And it would actually, like, lead you to be a better human being if you did these things. Because I know when I've gotten that feedback early on in my career, I actually took it to heart, right? Now, not all of people are going to understand that. But the ones that are trying to grow and learn, and the ones that are probably in this room right now, will actually take that. So props to the salespeople in the room trying to learn and better their careers as well. Same with the buyers.
More salespeople in the room, or is it still just Daniel back there getting beat up?
No, Jake's back there.
Okay,
I know Jake's back there, supporting me.
All right, we got at least two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's interesting because as a CISO, the first thing I would tell you is you don't owe anyone your time. And you don't,
totally.
Right? I mean, but at the same time, if we're going to, as I might be known to do, complain, moan, scream into the voids of the internet, etc., about how awful salespeople are doing things, we can help make it better by taking the time, maybe with just one or two. I mean, I've engaged with some through email and been like, I did literally, and I came off pretty snarky, but credit to her, she came right back and was like willing to make a conversation out of it. It was one of those where it was, I noticed you haven't responded to my other emails, so I wanted to send you one more, and this was like email 10. Okay, like I literally went back and checked. This was number 10. And I'm like, so I sent her a pretty snarky response, something along the lines of, I didn't respond to the first 9, and I guess you got me because now I'm responding to number 10. But I'm not responding to you for anything productive to your sales goals, kind of thing. And we came back, and she came back. She had a pretty good conversation. Some of it was her woe is me story. My marketing team does this. I don't even send these. They use Hootsuite, and it sends it on my behalf. I get it. But maybe you need to have a conversation with your marketing team about what they're doing to your sales process because it's killing you, right? But it led to a good conversation. And that's what I'm saying is like, and it was just, that conversation never left email. But now it's information. Think about it. She's got that email chain of her and I going back and forth, me telling her how bad her marketing team is screwing up things for her. What do you think happens if she takes that email chain, which I invited her to do, back to her marketing team? maybe, just maybe, somebody might hear something. It is, I can tell you from working the product side and working for both a startup at one point and a reseller, that in most cases, your product vendors, they do actually listen if they get feedback like that. Like actual demonstrable, constructive, hey, this is a problem, you need to stop doing this kind of stuff. So it is sometimes worth taking that time.
But not all the time.
Well, not with you.
Oh, yeah, of course, not me. You know, Alyssa, I think the other thing that, I feel like a lot of salespeople don't understand, and I read this book called The Phoenix Project. Has anybody read The Phoenix Project? Yeah, salespeople, you need to read that book because you actually understand what an IT professional goes through on a daily basis. This job is not a 9 to 5, by the way. If you didn't know that, read the book. So I think it would also be, to give some people perspective on what you go through on a daily, weekly basis,
You want me to give that perspective here, or you're just suggesting that I give that perspective to salespeople?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Because I think most of the people in this room probably understand my perspective pretty well. I'm hearing the phones ding while we're here, right? I mean, we know what this is. You go to a conference and you don't
Like,
always
Alyssa,
get to leave the phone behind.
Let me take a step back.
Yeah.
How many emails do you get in a given day?
Do I have to admit it?
Yes.
Do I have to admit that I actually did the research to find out this number? I wanted to know. Honestly, I really actually wanted to know. And thank you, Copilot, by the way. I badmouthed them before. I will say thank you to Copilot for this. I think I can trust it. I don't think it was a hallucination, although I kind of thought it was at first when I saw the number. It was 1,732 emails a day.
And how many of those emails are important?
100?
And how many do you actually read? Salespeople, seriously, like listen to
100,
this.
I swear.
Listen to this. And how many do you respond to?
Oh, God. Out of those that actually need to be responded to, it's about maybe 15.
Right, exactly. Like, and then you hear these salespeople bitching and complaining, oh, they don't look at my emails. Oh, they didn't come to my event. Oh, that's because they're getting 1,000 emails a day.
Don't let a salesperson pressure you.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah, that's...
It is your time.
Right,
that is
100%.
my point about...
Salesperson is social engineering you.
Oh,
Right,
100%.
right,
that's why.
right.
That's why when I emailed her back, I admitted, like, okay, I'm actually
me.
giving you this. I'm giving you the satisfaction that you haven't responded to the first 9. How about number 10? Actually worked. You got me to respond, but you got not the response you wanted. But yeah, you don't owe anybody your time. Is the point? It is
Right.
your time. But yeah, and to be fair, I mean, 1,700 emails. A lot of those are automated. Like I get all the PIM escalations or PIM activations rather. So I get all those alerts. Those are fun. Oh,
Are they though?
well, yeah, because it's fun when you find out that your IT team doesn't think anyone reads them. And let's see, I had the lyrics to Hey There Delilah was in one. Another was a very existential single-person, multi-person conversation about just the state of the world.
Those people.
And note, there's no like minimum length to these things. Like they're just required to put something right now. Anyway,
Also-
sorry, I totally digressed. Back to salespeople.
But there's something else that I want to talk about from we're talking about strategies, how to improve, right? I want to be super blunt here. Email and calling is the lowest form of business development.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
When salespeople call me,
I like her.
I'll give them a minute or 2 minutes. They're so surprised they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I want to hear about the product.
Right.
the service,
Totally.
And I'll give them a couple minutes on the phone.
Right. Totally.
But I decide whether or not then the next step.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Because their job is to close the sale. My job is to protect the company.
Totally. Yeah.
So I prefer to know about the product.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll need it in the future.
Cool. That's a great approach. The thing that I've learned over the last 2 years though is I've learned in the art of the referral and when working with IT professionals to say, hey, like great example, I had a customer of mine before I started my company. They were giving me a good amount of business. It was over 7 figures, and they couldn't do anything for the first 3 years. A lot of people in my position would be, that's not fair. I can't believe that. Like, you're not my friend anymore. But what I did do is I partnered with this individual, happens to be one of my best friends, and the guy gave me 40 plus referrals, gave me over $250,000 in new business, right? Like, that is the thing that we as sales professionals need to get better at. Like, we need to get smarter, right? And so much so that you can partner with people like Alyssa. Maybe, Alyssa can't partner with me, but what she can do is say, hey, Ben, there's this amazing technology partner. You need to work with them, right?
And as a buyer, by the way, now maybe you're not on the board of a reseller and you don't have that opportunity. I do use that. Like, I will tell them, I'll take a call and I'll be like, look, I'm not buying, we've already got a chosen IAM solution right now, right? Where we're knees deep in the rollout of this, where we're getting PAM launched, like, okay, whatever. I'll take a look at your cool tool, and you know who I'm talking about, actually, because this is a live example. And I get in there, and it's like, well, I'll take a look at it. I'm probably not going to buy it. In fact, I can almost guarantee you I won't. But I'm also a reseller, or I'm on the board for a reseller, and I regularly recommend products to them. So if you want to still sit down and talk about this, that might be an avenue where I can get you some help,
Totally.
right? And you'd be amazed. A lot of times they do. Sometimes they're like, I'm not really interested in channel partnerships, which if they say that, well, one, that's a really dumb comment because that's not necessarily what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
But two, like, why wouldn't you still have a conversation?
Right.
But so name it. But so as you as, whether you have that opportunity or not, you do have the opportunity of your peers. Like, hey, you know what? I might take a look at this. We're not going to be buying, but this sounds really interesting, and I have a few peers who might have some interest in it if I think this looks good. No, I'm not giving you them. I'm not going to give you their names or contact information to contact directly, but show me your product, and if I think they would be interested, I'll tell them about it and have them call you. Because that, again, that's where now too you'll also start to figure out who the smart account reps are and who the ones are that are just pounding the pavement, so to speak.
Alyssa, I think we have 10 minutes left. So if anybody, I know some people got some questions. So let's.
Yeah. So let's.
Lovely minute.
Over here.
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll get over here. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've been in this culture, and but I would initially put students on projects, and I would say, look things up on the web. There was absolutely nothing. I think this is amazing how it works. Because I think one of the first things when someone wants to buy something, they want to see, what are you saying on the web? And all it is it's pure marketing, zero technical. And it's absolutely horrible. That is probably the best way for salespeople to sell anything, because no one wants to call someone in and have to say, well, could you tell me in technical terms what this thing does?
This is a fascinating point, and it's very, very, very true. The lack of, hey, I want to restate it really quick. I'll come right back to you because they're also recording. So the point that's being made up here is that a lot of times you go to the websites for these vendors, and the information you can find is honestly insulting. I would call it as a CISO, because it's at such a high level with all sorts of cool animations and whatever.
Not a technical person. No one understands.
Yeah, none of it's technical.
I eventually
So.
changed my project. I can't do that, because if somebody's superlatives over here and superlatives
Right.
over here with zero technical.
Okay. So you had a second point though you were going to make.
The second point is that one way, people got into students, all of a sudden, Microsoft went to Apple, is your Macs, is basically because Mac was giving them away to kids. Okay?
Yeah, the old.
Universities can't afford, security products in the classroom, but it was a way you beat them out. Then students would have experience before they graduate, and they would actually
Yeah, so ultimately, I mean, that becomes the proponent for what we would call a loss leader, right? Like, what are you going to put out there? And loss leaders can be freebie giveaways. They can be, seriously discounted things, whatever. But that is a valuable way. And yes, Apple did do that really well with students with giving away devices or highly discounted devices either directly to students, or they also did it back in my young days, which feels like way too long ago. It was even the box tops for kids, if any of you remember that. Like my school built an entire Apple lab on that thing. So no, those are great points. Let's go over here. We had another one, and then we'll get to you.
Do you ever share the timing of your evaluation, budgeting, contract process? And if I'm a vendor, how would I kind of ask for the feedback? Obviously trying to come in and sell you the wrong thing. I'm going to have to.
So the question is, do I ever give up to my vendors kind of the details of my budget cycle? When are we setting budgets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And my answer, two questions here. The other question is, what could a vendor do to ask for that information? So first of all, yes, I do. I have no problem with letting them know. Why wouldn't I want them to know? Because they're going to do one of two things. The smart salespeople will slow their roll a little bit, but work on building a relationship and having conversations and figuring out, how do I solidify this so that when they start talking budget, I'm top of mind in her head. They love that word, top of mind. That's the top of mind you want. So I'm not shy about it because there's no reason for me to be cagey. And I can be very direct and say, you know what? We're budgeting in October. I don't know that this is going to make it into that budget this year coming up either. Like, this is just, I've got a couple other priorities I got to focus on. I don't have a problem telling them that, because as you tell them that, yeah, you might get some who kind of keep pushing a little bit, but then that tells me something. That tells me how often do I want to keep returning their phone calls or their emails, or how quickly do I move them to my spam bin and block them, right? I mean, those are the types of things. That's where I will, personally, because I'm a bit of a jerk, I will have a very direct conversation with them first, like, hey, you know what, you need to stop because I'm just going to be done with you.
Sorry.
Yeah, they're gone.
I think the other thing that I think about when I hear that is first off, that's what a good reseller partner is for as well. And if they're not giving that information to you, like, you need to find a new one. And then secondly,
saying that from the perspective of who needs to find a new reseller?
The customer.
The buyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then secondly is, if maybe you're a direct company, like, if they're not giving that information to you, like, that's not a real opportunity. Like, I feel like somebody like Alyssa, like, they know what they want. They need it. It's part of their budget. It's part of their metrics for the year. Like, they should know that stuff. So if they're not going to give you that information, like, it's not a real opportunity. I would just move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, and it's my opinion from a salesperson perspective, and this actually annoys some people on the buyer side too, and I'm like my peers, and I don't understand why. Like, they'll ask about, if it's a project or something, are you thinking, you can literally just say, are you thinking this is going to be like in the next year? Or is this just something, you're looking to discover more about? You can, as a seller, have that conversation. I wouldn't go to him and say, so when do you guys set your budget for the year? They'll do it.
Yeah, leading questions are great.
And that's how you won't get it. That's how I won't tell you, is
right,
if you come
right.
out with that. But no, I mean, I'll be honest with them, and just because, again, I want them to know, and sometimes that is a nice, easy way to get them to kind of slow their roll a little bit, too. So, all right, we had a question over here.
Thank you for the conversation. Do you have any advice for, like, smaller organizations? Like, you mentioned Series A, Series B, like startups that are maybe operating in the cyberspace. Like, how should they maybe approach, like, I know for a lot of startups, it's pilot customers or co-creation is like a good way to validate. Like, how should they approach, like, potential customers with that?
Yeah. So from my perspective, being a boutique firm, like, we help startups find architecture partners. So you should find, like, a boutique firm that knows about organizations that do that, is my first thing. And then just looking for organizations that are, like, pretty innovative, across your, and some of them might not be here in the Midwest. Like, I don't want to say that companies here in the Midwest aren't as innovative, but, like, I found that West Coast-based accounts, I mean, I have a customer right now that I know that they've done, like, over 100 architecture partnerships. but they're like one of the only ones that I know, right? So those are things that I would look for, but that's just my opinion. Alyssa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the design partnership idea is definitely expanding grossly. To the point that I now have people like Splunk coming to me and say they want me to sign up for a design partnership. You're, pardon my French, fucking Splunk. What are you talking about? But, I'm sorry, I had to pick on Splunk because it was them, and I have a colleague who knows them very well. But by the same token, so I do think that that's effective. And I'll be honest with you, I've done it now in my organization. We, as an organization, have done it with some reasonable players. I mean, you see Cribble out here. I don't think Axonius is out there. But those are two names that we were in very... Axonius is huge now, right? We were in very early with them, and a lot of the features you're going to find in Axonius, and this is not an endorsement, I'm just sharing this as a case study. You know, a lot of the features, if you go and buy Axonius today, you're going to find features in there that are there because Epic Global told Axonius, we need this.
And the great thing about architecture partnerships, too, is like you get everything that you want, and you get it for about half the price, usually, if not more.
Yeah.
But it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. You have to have resources in order to do those things. But it can be pretty good idea.
Yeah, I mean, from the other thing I would say from the startup side, as far as like, obviously the big thing you're up against is the uncertainty, right? No one knows who you are. They don't know how good your product's actually going to turn out to be. They don't know how strong your business is going to turn out to be. No one wants to get too deep involved with, you know, a startup that's going to, you know, hit Series A and then fall on their face and they disappear, and now this thing that I was, you know, well embedded with is no longer supported, and, you know, that becomes a problem. And especially in today's, you know, we used to, the risk management factor for that back in the day was we had the escrow clauses for the code, right? If nothing else, we knew we would at least get the code for it so we can take it on ourselves. Well, now everything's SaaS, so we don't even get that. To that end, where I'm going with that is I would say being more flexible in offering, I don't want to call it a bake-off because it's more of a production, more of like a side-by-side production kind of runoff. POC, you know, getting... The more flexible you can be with that, the better chance you have to build early trust. You know, if I go to like a, pardon me for saying it, but they're the big behemoth Cisco of the world, and try to get a POV with them, fucking nightmare, okay? It's bad. And I say that as someone who's got like insider knowledge of them because I know people that work there, and I was at, oh, I almost said it, the big red people who are a huge strategic partner of Cisco. So I know how to play that game, and I still can't get it with them, right? So that's where you have some ability to be very agile. That gives you the opportunity to do two things, and this is the benefit to you beyond just a sale. Even if that sale goes nowhere, you're going to get some really cool things you're not going to get any other way. You're going to get tried, proven, real-world feedback because they're not going to hold back. They're going to tell you why they don't want to buy your product, and they've just run it in a real-world environment. It wasn't just some, you know, POC where they had test cases. No, you let them, you know, work with them on something where we can actually run this in a state side by side with something else. I mean, obviously, a lot of this depends on what your product du jour is, but it gets you that, and it also sets you up again now where your name is out there, right? Someone remembers your name. Oh yeah, you know, they're talking to a colleague. You know, if one of my CISO buddies comes up and says, hey, we're looking at this new thing. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah, actually, I have. You know, we didn't buy it, but it was a really cool tool. You know, so I've seen that work out well. I mean, I know freemium approaches are another thing. I think that's kind of lost favor now a bit, and for good reason. I mean, it was an interesting idea, but it's proven, I think, in most cases not to work out. So I would stay away from it at this point.
Last thing I would say is you should be on stage, you know, educating people on cool things you're doing.
That's why I dragged his ass up here. Yes, sir. Distinguished gentleman in the front row.
It seems to me like the common issue here on both sides of this is actually marketing. It's not a purchaser versus salesperson, but the
the intersection with where marketing sets expectations. You know, you mentioned the quarterly goals, right? A lot of times I try to be, like you mentioned, open about, hey, you know, my budget is set for the year, my tactical plan, my strategic plan. You know, you're in my strategic plan, but you're not in it this year. But I'm almost always not getting an SVP or higher in sales in that original talk, and that person I'm talking to is a junior just looking to meet their numbers so they don't get laid off.
So
how do we just like get the marketing people in here and like just beat them with pillows filled with nickels to understand that they're not helping us?
Carl has chosen violence today. I do think a lot, to your point, so first of all, yeah, marketing is at the heart of a lot of this, but also I think some of the things you said, marketing is not at the heart of. Marketing is not the one measuring, at least in my experience, is not the one measuring those metrics. That is absolutely the sales team. Sales team is there, they've got goals, they set them at the beginning of the year, they do their big SKOs, which marketing may or may not be invited to. And, you know, they're going to set numbers and they're going to set quarterly goals based off of that, and then they're going to set their milestones and all the things that they do. That whole rat race there is a very sales org driven item. But yes, there are a lot of things, and I think part of it is, I'll have you repeat that in a second. I think some of it is we do need, ultimately sales is the interface to the marketing. And so for us as cybersecurity practitioners who are buying, you know, that's our vehicle to get that information back to the salesperson. So to ask your question about how do we do it without dragging marketing and beating them to death, which is, I'm paraphrasing, but kind of what you just said. I don't know. Well, you did say beating them with a pillowcase full of nickels. So
I would little selfish plug here. I mean, you also got to find a boutique firm like mine, like my business. Well, seriously, literally, this happened to Alyssa. Some annoying salesperson kept on reaching out to her that I knew, so I called the founder and I was like, "Stop," and then it stopped. You know, so.
Can I tell you?
What? No.
Damn it.
Let's not.
Ask me after.
But anyways, but those are that's like part of some of my strategic alignment is we know the CEO, we know the VCs, we know all the top level executives, because that way we can have strategic alignment to make sure that we don't piss off the community, right? So that, I mean, with that, I think we're probably good unless you have any.
No, I think we got to wrap up because I think we're at 4 o'clock and there's like
thanks
people
so much for
outside
being
with
here,
signs.
guys.
I think
We
we're
really
getting
appreciate
protested.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. I do have to ask really quick, how do you like this format as opposed to a regular talk? Was this cool or was this like, just too informal?
Very different mindsets rather than similar. So
Yes, it was definitely 2 different opposed mindsets, so.
The conversation was good.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I only asked because this is the first time we've ever done this.
Right.
It was just an idea we had, and I figured, what the hell, let's give it a shot at CypherCon. They'll listen to anything. Love you all, seriously. Take care, you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.